get that going there. And we're up and running. Hello, everybody!
Hello.
Hi, welcome to another edition of Torn Book Club. I'm Saruman, and with me is Jody Hauser.
Hello.
And we're going to be discussing more of sci-fi on Sci-Fi Month. And also, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Hope you're wearing green and not too hungover.
I'm wearing my discolored Yoda because it's close enough.
And I'm wearing my Lion Cat shirt from Saga.
And yeah, I'm not like one little bit Irish. I'm like Eastern European all the way.
I might be. I don't know. Like, my dad's side of the family is just white people, so there might be some Irish in there. There's
my stepfather's family is Irish, so I guess that counts.
You're like Irish adjacent.
Yeah, but you know what is Irish? My coffee.
I think my water's just American.
Just water. And we have some people in the chat right now. We've got Temple and Jan and Eva. Hello, everybody. What is that? What is everybody saying?
They're talking about how Irish they are.
Josh is probably late because he's watching The Dark Knight Rises. Yes, I marathon it every day. This is an ongoing thing we've got going between us. He likes The Dark Knight Rises. I don't.
I'm kind of in the middle. I like parts of The Dark Knight Rises. One
of these days, I'm going to do a video review of The Dark Knight Rises just for you, Jan.
to make him cry.
Yeah. So, let's go over some of the normal Torn Book Club stuff that we do every week. Temple's getting some weird sound issues. Okay, let's try that. Any of that helping? Are you still getting weird sound issues? Did I fix it? Maybe.
People aren't saying they still have issues, so...
So I guess it's okay.
Oh, sound issues on Ustream.
Okay. It's fine now, was weird for a moment. Okay, good. Excellent. We can continue then. Yay. It's kind of weird with this simulcast. Sometimes I get weird sound issues.
Okay.
But as long as it's all good now. So as we do every month, we have our Rewrite Tolkien contest. And this month, since it's Sci-Fi Month, we're doing The Hobbit in the style of Douglas Adams. And when we were talking about this, we actually originally were going to do it as The Hitchhiker's Guide to Middle-earth. And have people submit Hitchhiker's Guide entries about various places and people in Middle-earth. And I guess we got some signals crossed, and now it is more broad. But you know what? If you're going to do I suggest still doing a Hitchhiker's Guide entry to Middle-earth. And we also have our book of the month, which is Orphans of the Sky by Robert Heinlein. It's a very short read. In fact, I still haven't even started reading it because I don't want to read it now and then forget it when we talk about it later in the month. But just so you all know, that's the book, and check it out. So I'm also going to be issuing a challenge to everybody. And I'm going to do this, I'm going to write an article about it up on TheOneRing as well. But since this month is Sci-Fi Month, I've decided that next month, April, with Game of Thrones starting, it's going to be the big literary franchise month. So we're going to do episodes about Game of Thrones. We're going to do episodes about Harry Potter, which I know a lot of people have been asking us to do for a while now. We're going to do an episode on The Hunger Games. All the big book series that have crossed media, like gone from the book to movies to TV shows. And so the challenge I'm issuing to everybody is to find what you think is going to be the next big literary franchise.
Like the thing that hasn't even gotten a movie deal yet, maybe?
Maybe it hasn't gotten a movie deal. Maybe it should. Maybe it's on the cusp of it. Maybe it's a new series that just came out that you started reading and you think it's got the potential to really go all the way. Because we've had a lot of false starts with what people have thought was going to be the next Harry Potter or the next Hunger Games. Like I'm thinking of The Golden Compass or what was the other one?
The Percy Jackson books.
The Percy Jackson books, although they did get 2 of those. So
yeah. Chronicles of Narnia kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of petered out.
Narnia kind of petered out. So like there were a lot of false starts. Aragon was another like big bomb.
Yeah. And I guess we don't know how Divergent's going to do yet.
Yeah, like. I mean, it seems to be getting a lot of like viral play with like all these different like quizzes and stuff like that. But then I remember the Golden Compass had just as many different online quizzes and just as many like big studio hyped things. And then
photo booth at Comic-Con.
Yeah, and then when the movie came out, it bombed terribly. Jan is saying, well, I thought Hunger Games would be the next Harry Potter, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a different thing because it's just a shorter series, and so you're having 4 movies versus 8, but it seems like, it was, the Catching Fire was one of the biggest movies from last year.
Yeah,
so
yeah, that's true.
It's putting up the numbers.
Yeah, it definitely is. And also, I sort of feel like Hunger Games is kind of a different genre than Harry Potter. Like, Hunger Games is definitely more sci-fi, and Harry Potter is definitely more fantasy.
It's a very different tone, too.
Yeah. Like, Harry Potter, I would say, at least for the first 3 books, was very much a kid's series.
Yeah.
And Hunger Games was young adult pretty much through and through.
It was a Kill the Kids series.
Yeah. Which, yeah, I don't... Temple is saying, aren't they making a TV show of Neil Gaiman's American Gods? This is true.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
They are. That one's been in development for a while, but I think they're finally going ahead with that. And so yeah, we'll just throw American Gods in the pile as one of the potentials.
Never read the sequel.
Neither have I. I heard it was bad. I loved the first book, though.
Yeah, like, and it's actually been ages since I read that one. That needs to go on my reread pile.
Yeah, definitely. It's probably one of my favorite Gaiman books next to, like, the Graveyard Book.
Neverwhere still might be one of my favorites.
You know, I never read Neverwhere.
They did a play production recently in LA that was just really amazing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've always been meaning to read that one. And his latest one, what was that, I can't remember what it's called. It's like it sounds almost like The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, but it's not quite.
Yeah, it's at the end of the lane, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Forget.
Okay, now I feel bad. I feel like a bad Gaiman fan.
Moment of silence.
And also a quick reminder to everybody. I meant to talk about it last week and didn't really get to it because I was having way too much of a fun geeky chat with Eve. But we are going to have Tolkien Reading Day. This is an annual thing that happens worldwide, and it's March 22nd. And it's where fans get together and read selections from Tolkien in various establishments, bookshops, libraries, that sort of thing. And the theme for this year is hope. And this is worldwide. So you can check out Tolkienist.com. They've got a pretty comprehensive list of when and where events are happening all over the world, so you can find one close to you. And if you're in LA, we're going to be doing it at the Last Bookstore in downtown Los Angeles.
Which is an amazing bookstore that I really need to go to.
It is one of the coolest bookstores I've ever been to in my life. And it's presented by Tolkien Forever, which is the local chapter of the Tolkien Society out here in LA from 2 to 5. And if you are in LA and you're available on the 22nd, I highly recommend coming down.
Oh, and we have a question from Jan, who said he hasn't read The Hunger Games yet, but he liked the first movie. Is the second one as good? The second movie is way better than the first movie. I would agree.
The second movie is way better. I sort of felt like the books themselves sort of kept the same tone and pace throughout. And I would highly recommend reading the books. And,
yeah, definitely.
I mean, I don't want to get into spoiler territory, but the ending has always been kind of controversial.
Yeah, I was always okay with the third book. I know some people hate the third book.
Yeah.
Some people are okay with the third book. I haven't heard too many people who just like love the third book. They probably are out there.
They probably are.
Some people hate the second book, and some people the second book's their favorite. It's sort of a weird. Yeah, there's sort of not really an agreement among fans as to like which book is the best and does the series hold up in quality. So you kind of just sort of have to read and make your own decision.
Yeah, but I sort of feel like saying like which book is the best is sort of unfair because they all sort of go together as one big collective story.
It's sort of it almost could have been published as one really long book, and then it would be like people just arguing. Well, I thought the second third of this book was the best section of it. It's sort of that.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Jan, if you haven't read The Hunger Games or seen the second movie, I highly recommend doing both.
Agreed.
So we're talking Tolkien Reading Day, and you should definitely try to check it out. And I'll put a link up to the actual page on Tolkienist that has the list of all of these locations, because the actual URL was way too huge for me to just put on this graphic. So when we're done, I will go to the Facebook and the Twitter, and I will put the full URL with a link for all of you to check out. So, on to sci-fi. Sci-fi! And so today I wanted to talk a bit about sci-fi influences and because Jody and I were both writers and big sci-fi fans, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about like what we consider to be our biggest inspirations or our favorites. And Temple is they're still talking about the Hunger Games in the chat, of course. Temple is saying, I think the third book makes sense as a conclusion to the story.
I would agree with that.
Absolutely. It's not a happy ending, but it's
not a happy story.
No, it's not. And Light of the King is here. Hello, Light.
Hello.
So what would you consider to be some of your biggest sci-fi influences or your favorites?
Well, I was lucky. I grew up. My dad was a big sci-fi fan, so I sort of got told a little bit about Logan's Run as a bedtime story as a kid. I'm pretty sure, and like
it's kind of a terrifying bedtime story.
It was sort of he was sort of giving it a positive spin. It's like they break out and they don't have to get murdered at age 30 anymore. I don't remember too much. It didn't freak me out. That's all I remember. And he explained, it's like linear time travel via Back to the Future versus circular time travel via Terminator when I was, again, when I was really young. So I was way too young definitely to watch Terminator.
Yeah, time travel is a big one for me.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I absolutely love time travel. I've been fascinated with it ever since, I hate to admit it, but my first real exposure to time travel was watching Back to the Future, which is probably not the most accurate portrayal of time travel ever.
But it's also one of the most solid scripts that you'll find in Hollywood. I mean,
it really is.
There's a lot of people who name that, like current people working in Hollywood, who name that as the movie that inspired them to get into making movies.
Yes, so that's true.
I think that's totally valid.
Okay, fair enough. And I Stole the One Ring is now here. Hello, I Stole the One Ring.
Hello.
Yeah, all of our regulars are here. Yay! So Back to the Future, like, just really sort of fascinated me. As like the potential of time travel, and I always try to work time travel into what I write, like, all the time. Like, my one published book is about time travel.
Well, I remember when my dad was explaining time travel to me, I was like, that's nonsensical. I'm never going to write about that. And then, like, a couple years later, I was trying to write an epic time travel sci-fi novel.
Yeah. Well, I think what always fascinated me most is the idea of the predestination paradox.
Yeah.
Where if you travel back in time, then you've already affected the past, and therefore everything in your present has been affected by that.
Unless you've always traveled into the past, and that is what brings about the future.
Right, and so it becomes this sort of cyclical loop, and what happens if you become aware of that and you break that loop? And
then the universe collapses in a black hole in the end.
Yes, or if it's Doctor Who, a hole approximately the size of Belgium.
Yeah. Influences for me, I mean, Star Wars, I gotta say, is a big one, even though, as we were saying before the broadcast, that's more science fantasy. But, just the whole concept of space, as it seems like everything that's in space, people automatically assume is sci-fi.
Yeah.
In a way. It's just like, space is made of science.
But, I mean, lightsabers are not made of science.
Well, if you go into the extended universe, they do talk about the construction of the lightsabers.
But what I've found is, like, there's a lot of the Force involved in, like, making those things work.
And honestly, I feel like, in the prequels, when they tried to shove it more in the science direction with the midichlorians and everything, that just pissed people off. So the sort of fantasy aspect of Star Wars is definitely more appreciated by fans than trying to hand-wave everything as science.
Right, yeah. And I totally agree with that. And, like, I don't have as much of a knee-jerk reaction to the midichlorians as other people do, just because I sort of felt like it kind of clarified some things, like why some people are more in tune with the Force than others. If it's
it's not like it didn't make any sense at all. It was just, people were like, why weren't they talking about this before, sort of thing. It's the retconning more, I think.
Yeah. Although, if I remember correctly, they did talk about midichlorians in some of the books before the prequels even came out. Like, for some reason, I seem to remember reading a story where there was some sort of plant that was a natural midichlorian inhibitor.
That one I haven't read.
I may be misremembering that, but...
Does anyone in chat remember what he was talking about?
I could just be making stuff up. I really don't know.
The peril of being a writer.
Yep, exactly. So, and now we're talking about time travel in the chat. Jan is talking about, I just watched Looper yesterday.
Oh, I really need to see that.
Looper is a really fascinating movie about time travel and, like, predestination.
Yeah, is it on Netflix streaming yet?
I think it may be.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure.
That is what I will do this evening, then.
Temple is saying, you probably like Ray Bradbury. His sci-fi isn't so space-oriented. This is very true. And, his most famous book, Fahrenheit 451, is very much a social commentary.
Yeah, I actually read, and this is more on the fantasy side of Ray Bradbury, but Something Wicked This Way Comes.
I love Something Wicked This Way Comes.
That was summer reading for school, which was sort of made me, I'm like, I don't want to like this because
I'm
it's
jealous
summer
of your school
reading, but it's good and creepy and cool.
I'm jealous of your school now.
That was like high school.
My high school, we read Fahrenheit 451. Like, I had one teacher who was really into sci-fi and gave us, like, nothing but sci-fi books the entire year, which was amazing.
Oh, very cool.
Because, like, we had Fahrenheit 451, we had The White Mountains, I think Brave New World. I know I read it at some point.
Brave New World I actually loved the crap out of when we read that in high school.
But, yeah, that's another not very happy story.
No. Well, I actually was thinking back in terms of sci-fi influences. One of my favorite genres as a kid was dystopian kids sci-fi, basically. I mean, it's sort of like what the Hunger Games would fall under. I would have loved the crap out of the Hunger Games when I was a kid. I would have just read them over and over obsessively. But stuff like, well, you mentioned The White Mountain, like the Tripods trilogy.
Right, yeah.
Really falls under that. The Giver by Lois Lowry. One of my favorite books, which isn't as well known, is one called Invitation to the Game by Monica Hughes, and a lot of people haven't heard of it, but it's actually would be really relevant today still, because it's sort of in a future society where humanity almost died out. Luckily, they built a bunch of robots to sort of sustain things while they got their act together. But then we reach a point where robots have taken over so many of the jobs, and now that humanity's numbers are back on the rise, there just isn't anything for a lot of people to do. So kids get out of school and are basically assigned jobs, but a large portion of the population is assigned unemployed, and you're basically just unemployed for the rest of your life, and you basically are on a sort of welfare system, and there's no way to get out, and it's sort of like this very bleak existence. So it's about a group of friends who are all assigned to be unemployed, but they start hearing about things called the game, and that could be a way out of that sort of life. So it's them just sort of dealing with this new part of their lives and trying to get out when there is no path for them to get out.
Huh.
And it goes way off from that point, but I don't want to spoil anything.
That out. And Temple is talking about a City of Ember falls into the genre of dystopian society.
That's not one I read.
I haven't read that one either. I've been meaning to read that one. A lot of people have been recommending that to me. And maybe that one is a potential for the next big franchise, because I know it has a lot of fans, and I think people have talked about trying to make it into a movie.
And not under the umbrella of dystopian fiction. There might have been some, I can't remember, but William Slater, the writer, he wrote a bunch of really interesting. The one I remember the most is The Boy Who Reversed Himself, which had to do with dimensional travel.
Interesting.
It's literally this girl befriends this weird boy who moves in next door with his grandfather, and it turns out that they're protecting the second dimension in their basement. It's just
flat plane?
Yes, but then he also knows how to travel into the fourth dimension, but because of the extra directions involved, you can come back and be reversed.
Oh, wow.
In the third dimension.
It's a little terrifying.
It's really interesting, but it's kind of a little brain bending. It's, when you're reading this when you're
interesting. 8. Yeah, I would think so. That would be brain bending at 37.
But it's a cool book, and William Slater just wrote a bunch of stuff that was sci-fi and some verging on horror. One of the scariest books I read as a kid, not really sci-fi, but girl gets sucked into her dollhouse and the dolls try to kill her.
Okay.
So a lot of his stuff had similar tone to that, but that's sort of probably on the furthest end of creepy.
That sounds incredibly creepy. I don't know if I could handle that one.
But yeah, his sci-fi stuff definitely was probably some of the most hard sci-fi that I read as a kid.
Cool. And a while ago, Light of the King was mentioning Kurt Vonnegut as a good time travel, and I'm assuming she's referring to Slaughterhouse-5, which is pretty much just crazy all over the place time travel. Which I have never actually read all the way through, but I've heard it's just a complete mind trip.
Yeah. Oh, and Jan's bringing up a good point, asking if superheroes can have sci-fi elements, and I would say Man of Steel, which you're mentioning, is definitely more of a good sci-fi movie than a good Superman movie.
I would absolutely agree with that. In fact, I would say maybe the first 20 minutes of Man of Steel is a fantastic sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
And then it kind of goes downhill from there.
I mean, honestly, if it wasn't coming in, he wasn't coming in with all the baggage of Superman and what we consider to be Superman. If it had just been a new character, I think it would have been an amazing movie.
I agree. And Superman isn't the only superhero that has sort of a sci-fi story. There's also Green Lantern.